So it's a pretty organic extension of the final storyline of Mists of Pandaria. There's kind of the question of what if? What if Garrosh gets away? What would he do? What can he do to continue furthering his plans? I think that leads to this storyline. There's another answer to that too, which is how can we tell some of our, I think, best epic stories from Warcraft, the older Warcraft games like Warcraft 2, and bring that to fans that may have not played those. And this is a great way to share those stories.
I think there's tone, too, that you need to talk about. Like, we set a tone with Mists of Pandaria about exploration and, beautiful environments and to some extent bringing peace to a world that we've brought chaos to, ultimately. And I think, as the team, we sort of feel the same way the players might after a while. Like, we work on this thing for a long time, we kind of get in that mode, and then we get to a point where we're like, we really need a different tone. We need something that feels like it's supportive of this, but also different and a new idea. And it just tonally felt right to go out of that kind of exploration, beautiful environment and expansion into something that was just at its core like a very deep-rooted Warcraft expansion and experience. Well, I think it's an opportunity to talk about also like the fact that we're letting people level to 90 right off the bat. So I feel like that's kind of a game changer for us, specifically because it really isn't necessary to have that 0 to 90 leveling experience at that point, and have that context to other expansion and everything else that's going on in the world. And I think while if you ask any one developer, we'd probably all say that we would love to give everyone that experience because we've all gone through it numerous times and appreciate it. We do realize that if I haven't played for months or years, and Jason comes to ask me to come back and play, I'm going to have to go through that leveling experience, catch up to him, and he's meanwhile finished with the content and the high level stuff, or in-game content. So
we're probably not going to play together, so we want a way to do that.
Right. So I think in a roundabout way, that speaks to why this might be a good time to do more of a self-contained expansion. We are traveling to a different time, a different continent. It is a little bit more of just kind of its own thing, separate from the world. Events that happen in Draenor are not going to affect anything that happens back on Azeroth. But there is a very real threat, right? Like, if you're not able to stop the Iron Horde, they're going to come through that gate and they're going to crush everything in Azeroth. So I think as long as we're able to kind of tie things together like that, and it doesn't just feel like, well, there's no reason to go do that because it's happening way over there and it can never affect us. If it still feels at its core root like there's a threat that you need to go address, then I think we're kind of trying to balance those two worlds.
Ours is a legacy of conquest.
Happy to take this one. So a big focus has been on the amount of work that it's going to take to update the character models. If we were to do a new race specifically, that's less time we have spending on the character models for one. But we're also doing a lot of things in this expansion. There's leveling from 90 to 100. And we picked 100 for a couple of reasons. One is it's epic. It's an epic number. The other reason is that it allows us to kind of smooth out the leveling curve as far as power goes with your character. So the designers are spending a lot of time thinking about how to do that well and fun and smoothly. And so each level you're going to get some kind of little bonus, which is interesting. It's a reason to want to keep going through doing that. And then we're doing a lot of content. We've got 7 zones, 5 or 6 new dungeons plus the redone Blackrock Spire, right? Upper Blackrock Spire, which totally makes sense considering the Blackrock Orc clan is really the heart of the Iron Horde. So there's a lot in this patch. There might not be a new class, there might not be a new race, but we're doing a lot of stuff.
You know, I would also counter that too by saying that I think it's actually a little bit more boring to be formulaic to the point where we know, okay, a new expansion's coming out. They're going to do a new class. They're going to do a new race, and we can expect that. And you know, every single time it's rinse and repeat. Like we really just want to do what we feel like is right for the time that the expansion comes out. You know, maybe we do a new race and it feels like we don't really want to introduce a new storyline because we have other things to focus on. So for us, when we talked about the level of content that we would have and the number of things to do in this expansion, and we held that against like, well, is there a reason to really do a new class or a new race at this time? If the answer isn't a resounding yes, because we have to tell the story with this new class, then it almost feels like we're just shoving it in there for the sake of shoving it in, and we're not doing, I think we're doing a disservice to the game and to the community if we're not focusing on what we as developers feel like is the fun part of what this expansion is.
And this is all about going back to the roots, right? The other thing that we're doing that I'm really excited about is the Garrison. Garrison
really cool.
is quintessentially World of Warcraft. I mean, that is a quintessential Warcraft experience, right? It is base building. It is making interesting decisions about what you're going to have in your base, what you're going to have your followers do, what kind of loot they're going to get for you. I mean, this is all very interesting things, all about building this frontier, like this frontier fort that you then turn into a castle, that you then turn into a giant fortress. I mean, this is all, it's awesome.
It's awesome. Are we
Those
gonna
two.
see?
Yeah, we're doing
I don't know how many. And Cenários is one of those things where it's hard to put on a number on how many we're going to do because. So we learned a lot from Timeless Isles. Timeless Isles was a very fun bit of experience to do out in the world, right? Because you had these treasure chests that would pop up. You had elite monsters that you had to go kill. And you may or may not get a quest to go do that, right? And then there are things that you had to do with other players, and there are things that you could do solo. We learned a lot from doing that, and we want the world to be kind of more dynamic and built more like Timeless Isles. So that means that we're going to kind of naturally make more a scenario where it makes sense to make a scenario, and a dungeon where it makes sense to do a dungeon. You know, but yeah, like we didn't say, well, we're going to do X number of scenarios. It's going to, as we go through the zones, it's going to make sense to add them in places and not add them in places. Yeah, but we're definitely making it. We're not giving up on that. That was important tech and important ways to tell story.
Yeah, that's why I asked, because in these expansions, lore is going to be very important because we have to explain why we are going to Draenor. You see it in the past, and in Mists of Pandaria, you use scenarios to explain lore. That's why I asked.
Yeah, we'll be doing more of that as well. I mean, so the thing that we're going to do immediately before the launch of the expansion is quests and scenarios to tell that story. I don't know if we're going to do a scenario exactly, or if it's going to be a movie, but I mean, it'll make sense. Yeah.
Hopefully.
From what I've heard, it makes sense.
I really will.
Yeah, there's going to be both, right? It's not like we're taking away the classic level 1 to level 90 experience, right? That's still going to be there. It's just the way that we're building Draenor and the way that we're building the quest system is going to be slightly different than what you've seen now. You'll actually, if you go down and play the demo, you'll get a taste of that. The quests that you see are similar to what we've already done, but we're doing things on the back end and with the user interface to be able to call out like the main storyline quest, so that you know in this zone what's the story that you need to follow. We're also doing, like I said, more things like we did with Timeless Isle. Some of that is going to be dynamic. Some of that is just going to appear dynamic, right, through the magic that our designers do. You know, things don't actually have to be randomly generated to appear to be dynamic. You know,
the players just need to feel that they are.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I don't want to pull back the curtain too far.
Rising tide of blood and iron that will wash.
That's because we haven't talked much about professions. Professions is one of those things that we'll be talking about more as we go along. It's definitely something that we work on throughout the expansion. they mentioned it briefly in the keynote that, and also more in the World of Warcraft What's Next panel, that professions are going to be tied in a lot with the garrison. Like everybody's going to have a garrison. You're going to be making decisions about which profession you're going to want to focus on, or which, like, you might want to spend a lot of your effort with your garrisons on a lot of professions, and those are things that you're going to be able to do. Like like on your character, you might not have blacksmithing. You might get a blacksmith follower that can do that and can do some of those things for you, like can smelt ore for you if you can't do that yourself. Like the farm, how the farm was tied very closely to cooking, garrisons is going to be tied very closely to all the professions. So we're doing a lot, but I don't have a lot of details to tell you about, like, this is what we're doing for dual crafting. That'll come along as well.
And the problem I see is the boost. From
The what?
one, the boost. From one
Oh, the
to,
boost.
to level 90,
Yeah.
you won't be able to have your profession up to the max level because you're gonna have the new
Right.
character. That's why.
We've
why
been
I
thinking about that. I don't remember what we're going to do. We're going to do something. I just don't remember what it is.
asked.
Sorry.
Okay. That's what I asked because right now, when you are leveling a character, your profession.
Oh, it's painful. Yeah.
Especially if it's enchanted. But
Yeah.
if you have that
Right there
new
with me.
character from 1 to 90, you won't have any profession. So that's what I asked.
Or you played, through Burning Crusade and you have a profession, but it's like level 250 or whatever.
It's useless.
Going up to 500 is not going to be fun, right? We're going to deal with that. I don't know what the answer is.
Over this world and all others!
Right now,
Sure. So let me tell you about. There's a lot in that question, but I want to focus on why flex, right? So why flex is because you've got a lot of situations where you have guilds that have 13 solid players, right? They can't really do a 10-man because there's always 3 people sitting out. They can't do a 25-man because they need 12 more players. We wanted to give them flex. So flex is for you, right? Like there's that. I can't remember. Sorry. So there's a bunch of different difficulties, right? There's a little something for everybody. There's like, if you've got the casual guild that can kind of do the content, we want them to be able to do that. We want them to be able to pick that up with other people as well, so you can do flex. Then you've got normal, which is a bit more of a challenge. Then you've got heroic. Heroic isn't also enough for the really hardcore player, right? That's why we want to do mythic. The very hardcore players are always seeking more of a challenge. We want to give them more of a challenge. Then again, somebody like me who doesn't raid at all, I want a medium-sized guild, right? It's really all about appealing to everybody as much as we possibly can. To unify? I don't know.
I don't know.
If you run into Tom, ask him, because I don't know the answer.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry for the last question.
No worries.
Quem ousará nos desafiar?